Abraham, learning to walk by faith. Faith is one of the most powerful words in the Bible, yet it is also one of the hardest to live out. Many believers talk about faith, pray for faith, and admire people of faith, but few truly understand what it means to walk by faith when the future is unclear. That is why the story of Abraham is so important. His life shows us that faith is not a feeling, a sudden miracle, or a perfect journey. Faith is obedience, step by step, even when God does not explain everything. Abraham's story is not just ancient history. It is a living message for every believer today who is waiting on God, trusting Him for promises not yet fulfilled, or walking through seasons of uncertainty. Abraham faced delays, fears, mistakes, and tests that stretched his faith beyond human strength. Yet through it all, God proved Himself faithful. As we walk through Abraham's journey, we will see how God calls ordinary people, leads them through unknown paths, and shapes them into vessels of blessing. This story will help you understand how faith grows, how God tests it, and how obedience unlocks divine promises. Stay with this story, because Abraham's walk by faith may speak directly to your own. Abraham's journey of faith begins with a call that changes his entire life. In Genesis 12, verse 1, the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." God did not give Abram a map. He did not explain the destination in detail. He simply called him to leave everything familiar behind. Abram was living comfortably in Haran, surrounded by family, culture, and security. Yet God's call required separation. Faith often begins with letting go of what is known in order to follow what God has spoken. Abram was 75 years old when he obeyed, Genesis 12, verse 4, proving that God's call is not limited by age. He trusted God's voice more than his comfort. That decision marked the first step of a lifelong walk by faith. Abram did not move because he understood the plan. He moved because he trusted the one who spoke. Hebrews 11, verse 8 tells us, "By faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place which he would receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going." This verse reveals the heart of true faith. Abram's obedience came before clarity. Many believers today want answers before obedience, but Abraham teaches us that obedience often brings understanding later. He packed his belongings, took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and began a journey that would shape history. Faith does not remove uncertainty. It teaches us to trust God in the middle of it. As Abram traveled, God revealed His promise. In Genesis 12, verses 2 to 3, God said He would make Abram into a great nation, bless him, make his name great, and bless all families of the earth through him. This promise was astonishing because Abram had no children. Sarai was barren, and humanly speaking, the promise seemed impossible. Yet God was teaching Abram that faith is not based on circumstances, but on divine power. Abram did not argue with God or demand proof. He believed God's word, even when reality appeared to contradict it. This moment teaches us that God's promises often exceed human logic, requiring faith that rests solely on His faithfulness. Wherever Abram went, he built altars to the Lord, Genesis 12, verses 7 to 8. These altars were places of worship, remembrance, and surrender. They marked Abram's journey and reminded him of God's presence. Faith is strengthened through worship. Abram did not only move physically, he stayed spiritually connected to God. Each altar represented trust, gratitude, and dependence. Even in unfamiliar lands, Abram acknowledged God as his source. For believers today, this shows that walking by faith requires regular moments of worship and prayer. Faith grows when we intentionally remember who God is and what He has promised. Abram's faith was soon tested by famine. Genesis 12, verse 10 tells us that a severe famine forced him to go down to Egypt. There, fear overcame faith, and Abram asked Sarai to say she was his sister. Though God protected them, this moment revealed Abram's human weakness. Faith does not mean perfection. Even great men of faith can stumble. Yet God's grace remained. Abram learned that trusting God only when things are easy is not enough. Faith must stand firm even when survival seems threatened. God's faithfulness does not depend on our flawless obedience, but on His unchanging nature. When Abram and Lot became wealthy, conflict arose between their herdsmen. Abram showed remarkable faith by allowing Lot to choose first. Genesis 13 verses 8 to 9. This was not weakness, but trust. Abram believed God could bless him regardless of Lot's decision. Lot chose the fertile land near Sodom, while Abram remained in Canaan. God then reaffirmed his promise to Abram. Genesis 13 verses 14 to 17. Faith enables believers to choose peace over competition, trusting that God's blessings cannot be stolen by human choices. In Genesis 14, Lot was captured during a war. Abram did not hesitate to rescue him. Though Abram was not a warrior by profession, he trusted God for victory. God gave him success, and Lot was rescued. This shows that faith is not passive. True faith acts courageously for the sake of others. Abram also refused the king of Sodom's reward, declaring that his blessing came from God alone. Genesis 14 verses 22 to 23. Faith keeps the heart free from pride and dependence on worldly gain. One of the most powerful moments in Abraham's story is found in Genesis 15 verse 6. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. God promised Abram descendants as numerous as the stars. Abram believed, despite his age and Sarai's barrenness. This verse is foundational to Christian faith. It shows that righteousness comes through belief, not works. Faith is trusting God's word even when fulfillment seems impossible. Time passed, and the promised child did not come. Waiting tested Abram's faith deeply. Sarai suggested that Abram have a child through Hagar, Genesis 16. This decision led to pain and conflict. Waiting can tempt believers to act outside God's will. Abram learned that faith must include patience. God's promises are fulfilled in His time, not ours. This season teaches that impatience can create unnecessary struggles, but God remains faithful even when we fail. In Genesis 17, God changed Abram's name to Abraham, meaning father of many nations. Sarai became Sarah. God reaffirmed His covenant and promised a son through Sarah. This name change symbolized transformation. Faith involves identity. God calls believers according to what He has promised, not their current condition. Abraham had to embrace a new identity before seeing the fulfillment. When Abraham heard that Sarah would have a child, he laughed. Genesis 17 verse 17. Sarah also laughed. Genesis 18 verse 12. Yet God responded, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Genesis 18 verse 14. Faith can include moments of doubt, but God's power is greater than human weakness. God's promises stand firm despite human reactions. In Genesis 21, God fulfilled His promise. Sarah gave birth to Isaac. The impossible became reality. God proved that He is faithful to His word. Isaac's birth was a testimony that faith rewarded through patience leads to joy. This moment teaches believers that God's delays are not denial. This was the greatest test of faith. Abraham obeyed, trusting that God could even raise Isaac from the dead. At the last moment, God provided a ram. This act foreshadowed Christ's sacrifice and showed that God never intended harm but obedience. After Abraham's obedience, God reaffirmed His covenant. Abraham learned that faith produces obedience, and obedience releases blessing. God revealed Himself as Jehovah Jireh, the Lord who provides. Abraham lived and died trusting God. His faith became a model for all believers. Romans 4 verses 20 to 21 says he did not waver through unbelief, but was strengthened in faith. Abraham's life teaches that faith is a journey, not a moment. Abraham's story reminds us that faith is not about having all the answers. It is about trusting God one step at a time. Abraham walked by faith through uncertainty, waiting, failure, testing, and fulfillment. His journey shows us that God is faithful to His promises and patient with His people. Just as Abraham trusted God without seeing the end, believers today are called to walk by faith, not by sight. If God could fulfill His promises to Abraham, He can surely fulfill His promises to you. Keep walking. Keep trusting. God is faithful,